What is going on, everyone? This is David. Thought I'd try a new kind of video today where I talk about a tweet that I posted that kind of wasn't the most well received. I thought I'd just kind of talk about it, and I'm more interested in how it was received generally and the way that it was taken. So we'll kind of walk through what the post was, what the response was to it, and then kind of coloring further what I think was going on. So let's start by sharing that post. It's this post right here. It says, hot take, Miis shouldn't have been added to Smash Bros. Roster. They're not iconic characters like Mario, Link, Samus, etc. They are generic avatars. Number 2, the customizable moves are cursed and ruin competitive play. 3, Mii costumes were the worst of both worlds. They look dorky, prevented other characters from having more meaningful inclusions, for example, the possibility of a Geno Assist trophy, and instead of having cooler custom, even DLC custom costumes per character, like Project M. Miis could have easily been represented in Smash through stages, music assist trophies, or something else. They don't belong in an all-star cast roster. So I figured this would be controversial, but it turns out it's a bit more controversial than I thought, and most of the critiques around it were, what are you talking about? You're out of your mind. Miis absolutely are iconic. They're super recognizable. And I guess with this first point, I wasn't clear enough. I wasn't saying they weren't popular, recognizable, or iconic in a broad sense, especially with their association with Wii. Wii was extremely iconic. Miis were part of that, no doubt. But when I said this, I said they're not iconic characters. And by that I mean, and I clarified in a quote retweet here that I'll read through and kind of expound upon. I said I figured it'd be controversial, but didn't realize it would strike this much of a nerve. If it helps, it's not that I don't think Miis are iconic at all. They're just not as iconic as characters in the same way your video game protagonist is, for example. Backstory, personality, experiences, motivation, etc. A blank slate character can't have that by definition. Miis are undoubtedly iconic as Nintendo avatars or mascots, but they feel strange as an inclusion to me as someone who believes that the Smash roster should be reserved for a particular kind of all-star cast. I put Steve in the same category. Weird that his alt costumes are just straight up other characters, kind of proved my point there, and it's okay if you disagree, just want to put this idea out there. So, to kind of expound on these points, there's no doubt that Miis are iconic, generally speaking, but when I think, you have to think about when Smash came out in 1999, and I felt like Smash 64 was a gathering of the greats, right? It's an Avengers-esque team of Nintendo's mightiest heroes, right? And obviously, there are debates about who you could consider iconic, recognizable, etc. But what I would say is that the Miis are categorically different from your standard characters because they're meant to be kind of an avatar for anything, right? You can put yourself in the game, you can put a celebrity in the game, so they're not really the same. You could argue that other avatars are in the game as well. Minecraft Steve is an obvious example, which I also included here. But even like in an extreme example, you could say Link is an avatar because he doesn't speak, and he was designed for the player to kind of put themselves in his shoes. So there's a lot of different ways you go about this, but I would say one person responded and brought up a really good point, which was, Miis do have a place because they kind of replace the wireframes, the fighting polygon team, the alloys from the previous games, and I would say I agree. I mean, I think that was a reason that those characters weren't playable, right? You couldn't play as the alloys or the fighting polygon team or the wireframes, and I think that was deliberate. I think Miis kind of explained why. I think Miis, at their best, could have been more representative of Wii Sports Resort, Wii Play, right? And I think some people that responded had those good points as well. I would say a Mii with that sort of a moveset would be a better fit. Sakurai has added characters that previously had no personality and gave them personality, so he imbued them with character traits, right? So an example of that would be Ice Climbers, Mr. Game & Watch, right? Everyone associates them with a certain personality and with certain just characteristics of a character. And actually, especially the Ice Climbers, they have a backstory in NES, even if it's not well understood or recognized. I just think an avatar like a Mii can't, because it can be anything, right? So, and as Smash games were continued to be made, you have this massive 70, 80 plus roster, whatever it is, in Ultimate, and as we've seen, we've continued to kind of scrape the bottom of the barrel to get more characters in. So it's felt over time, it's cool to get third-party characters and have more options for players because there are fans of all these characters. But as we've continued, we've kind of reached a point where it doesn't feel as special to be included on the roster. And part of that's just sheer number. There's so many characters now. Whereas earlier on in Smash 64 and Melee, it was like a really prized spot to be a character on the roster. So anyway, not a super important video to make, but I just thought it'd be fun to kind of kick off the conversation. I understand why people are upset at this. Many people really have a passion for custom content, and trust me, I do as well. I love custom content in Smash games and Smash-like games, platform fighters. But I would say Miis don't really scratch that itch, and I would say Mii costumes are really kind of the worst way a character could be represented, right? So, for example, Shovel Knight, like I brought this up in this post, Shovel Knight being represented as an assist trophy is fantastic, and I'm happy for it. I feel like as the developers, we can look at that and say, I feel like Shovel Knight is in the game in a definitive way. Whereas, with Geno is a costume for a Mii. So, and also for Undertale fans, Sans is just a kind of accessory for a Mii. So people will say, oh yeah, I'm going to play as Sans. Well, they're not really playing as that character. They're playing as a avatar LARPing as that character, right? With a moveset that's not even remotely derivative to that character. That's like saying, oh, well, in my mod of Mario, he wears a Waluigi shirt, right? He wears a shirt with a picture of Waluigi on it. I'm playing as Waluigi. Well, no, you're not. You're playing as Mario with Mario sound effects and movesets and animations, and you're just referencing Waluigi. That's kind of what all the Mii costumes are. So while it does allow for more representation, which is a good thing, I suppose, I would argue it's probably the lowest tier. I would even prefer spirits. I know that's extremely controversial, but a sticker or a trophy or a sticker is actually a proper representation of the character, whereas, you're sort of masquerading as the character in some other character otherwise. So anyway, I could go on about that, but I thought I'd address it and kind of clarify my points. If you guys have your own opinions, I'd love to hear them. Should Miis be in the game? Should they not be? Should they be revised? Should they be left as is? I'd love to hear all of it in the comments. I'll talk to you guys next time.